Hey everybody, and welcome to this tutorial with Animate and Shape Tweens. So let's go ahead and get started. So in Animate, we're going to start off with our ActionScript 3.0 file again. And so the first thing that we want to talk about really is what is a shape tween. So we have different types of tweens. And the reason we call them tweens is because you're essentially making a first look, an ending look, and then Animate is going to create what goes in between. So with a shape tween, you can have the object move, and you can also have it what you call morph or transform into something else. So we're going to look at this a little bit. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the oval tool on my toolbar. And I can set my stroke and my fill color to colors that I'd like to use. Again, there are other properties here that I could use as well as I start to set it up. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a circle. Remember, if I hold Shift, I can turn that into a perfect circle, and I let go of it too soon. There we go. And so now I have a circle on my stage. Now, if I grab my selection tool, which is the black arrow at the top of my toolbar, if I click once on a shape, it's dotted. So this is the fill. This means that it's broken. It can be manipulated. I could pull the fill out, separating it from the shape. I could go up to any part of that fill and get this arc and pull it in and manipulate it. I could grab the sub-selection tool and click on the object, again, to manipulate it the way that I want. I'm going to undo all of that. Control-Z is my Windows key command. A couple more times. All right. If I double click, then I'm selecting the whole object. So a lot of people will accidentally click and move it without the outline. So you always want to make sure you double click so you're seeing that dotted outline around everything. You could also use the selection tool and just click and drag out a box, a rectangular marquee, to select the object as well. If you get frustrated with this and you don't want to have to deal with double clicking, you can select the object, and in the properties panel under the fill and stroke area, this middle button here will create an object. And so now you can see this is a single object. I don't have to click and I don't have to move it. It doesn't make it a symbol. It just simply makes it one solid piece, and I can break it apart or allow myself to be able to modify it by doing a Control B. And once again, you can see that it's dotted. All right, so let's start off with using the shape tween to simply have the object move across the screen. So I'm going to go to frame 40 on my timeline. I'm going to use my function 6 key, F6, to create a new keyframe. So we have a beginning keyframe. This is where the animation starts and what it looks like. And then we have an ending keyframe, and this is where the object should end and what it should look like. So if I don't move this, nothing's going to happen. So I've got to go to the end, and I've got to move it somewhere. So I'm going to move it to the top right. Now, right now, nothing's going to happen because it's just jumping from one frame to the next. But if I right-click in the middle of those two keyframes, I can select Insert Shape Tween. It automatically becomes a green line letting me know what type of tween it is. And so you can see that Animate has created the frames in between. If you had a symbol here that you pulled out of your library, if you're familiar with that, and you create a shape tween, you're going to notice that this line will appear dotted. And that just basically means that you have to break the object apart at the beginning and at the end. Otherwise, the shape tween will not work. So on frame 40, what I could do is I could select the object and hit the delete key. You'll notice how it becomes dotted because there's no ending frame. I could grab the rectangular tool. I'm going to change my colors here for my stroke and my outline. And I can draw a rectangle, or I could draw a perfect square. And now you can see that as that shape is moving, it's transforming into another object. Not only does it allow the object to move and the object to change colors, but it also allows the object to transform. All right, so now that we've gotten a little bit of a background on what a shape tween is, the next thing that we want to talk about is what if you want two shape tweens at once? You can only have one object on each layer. So you can't add another object to this layer with the circle. You can't add another object to this layer with the square. So I'm going to rename this circle to square, and I did that by double clicking. I'm going to click the new layer icon here, which is the page turning, and I'm going to call this square circle. So you get the idea of what I'm going to do here. So on the first frame, I'm going to start off with a square. And if I'm not seeing my properties over here on the right, I can also set those down here at the bottom, or I could draw it out. I could click on the frame to select the object, or again, double click or use the selection tool, or excuse me, the selection tool to make a rectangular marquee around it. I can change the colors. All right, then I go to the end again, frame 40. I hit F6. Now that's going to allow me to take the previous frame and place it in that location. So I either move that object, and if I insert a shape tween, it will just simply move that square. If I change frame 40, I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to grab the circular tool, and again, I'm going to choose some different colors here. And now those objects are moving at once. Notice how this object, your square to circle, goes on top of the circle to square. It's because of the layer order. If I swapped those, you would see how it changes which one appears on top. So that's allowing us to put two different animations happening at once inside of Animate. All right, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete these layers. I don't need to use this anymore, so I'm going to select both of them and hit the trash can icon. I'm going to grab the text tool and I'm going to type out hello. I'm going to highlight this text, and in the properties panel, I can change the type of font that it is. I like this font though. I can change the color of the font. I can change the size of the font. Notice the font size only goes up to 96. You can get it up to 100, 150, 200 by simply typing those numbers in. You can also, by the way, highlight that and change the letter spacing to space these apart. Now, if I wanted to add a shape tween to this, notice how there's a box around it. This represents that it is an object. So if I clicked on frame 40, I hit F6, I inserted a shape tween. Oh, doesn't allow me to. That's because it's a solid object. I'm going to undo that. So what I want to do is I want to do a Control B with the text selected. That's going to split it into letters. So I'm not done yet. Control B one more time. Now that is dotted and it can be manipulated. Now, if I want to move each of these individually, I don't want to have to click on one, cut and paste, click on one, cut and paste. I can right click on them and distribute them to layers. Now, the only time this won't work is if your letters are touching, because then it doesn't see that they're individual characters. So make sure they're not touching, which is why I use the letter spacing. So now you can see that each letter is on a different layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out to frame 40 and I'm going to select the frame for each of those layers. I did that by simply clicking and dragging. I'm going to hit F6. Notice there's nothing on layer 1. That was where the beginning text was. And then I'm going to double click on each letter and I'm just going to move it to a different location. There we go. Now I'm going to select the middle and insert the shape tween. Again, they don't have to morph in shape. They can simply move with a shape tween. Now, if you were really going to do this, you just want to use a motion tween, but you can see that it does work that way. All right, now let's take this one step further. Let's say we want the H to change into a shape. I can delete that. I can grab a shape tool. I can add it there, move it into place, and now that H is shaping into a different letter. All right, so that's shape tweens. I'm going to do another video for shape hints. So if you'd like to learn a little bit about how you can manage the way it shapes, check out the next video.